Nobody expected a single offhand remark to reopen a story that Hollywood had spent years trying to leave behind. It happened in the way these things often happen, not with a dramatic confession, not with a scandalous headline, and certainly not with a carefully planned revelation. It started with a look. A pause that lasted a fraction too long. A smile that appeared for only a second before disappearing again. Yet somehow, that brief moment was enough to send millions of people down a rabbit hole they thought had been closed forever. For years, audiences had argued about what really happened between Jamie Dornan and Dakota Johnson while filming the globally successful 50 Shades of Grey trilogy. Officially, the answer had always been simple. They were professionals. They were colleagues. They were actors doing a job. That was the explanation repeated in interviews, press conferences, and promotional appearances across nearly a decade. Yet no matter how many times that explanation was offered, a surprisingly large portion of the public never entirely believed it. Perhaps it was because chemistry of that magnitude is difficult to explain. Perhaps it was because audiences are naturally drawn to stories that appear unfinished. Or perhaps it was because every time the pair appeared together, there seemed to be something lingering beneath the surface, something impossible to define yet equally impossible to ignore. The fascinating part was not what people saw on screen. Hollywood produces convincing performances every year. Audiences understand that acting is acting. The real mystery emerged everywhere else. It appeared during interviews when both stars exchanged knowing glances. It surfaced during press tours when harmless questions suddenly generated nervous laughter. It emerged during red carpet appearances where neither seemed entirely comfortable discussing the other for too long. Over time, those moments accumulated. One incident meant nothing. 10 incidents created curiosity. 100 incidents created a narrative. And narratives, once established, are incredibly difficult to kill. For years, Jamie seemed determined to keep that narrative buried. He rarely volunteered personal reflections about those films. When questions drifted into speculation, he redirected them. When conversations became too emotional, he retreated into humor. It was a strategy that worked surprisingly well. Gradually, public fascination faded. The frenzy cooled. The speculation became an occasional topic rather than a daily obsession. Then came the interview. At first, there was nothing unusual about it. Jamie appeared relaxed, comfortable, experienced. The sort of confidence that comes from spending years answering the same questions in front of cameras. He discussed projects, career choices, and the realities of navigating an industry where every public word can become a headline. Nothing suggested that the conversation was about to take a dramatic turn. Then Dakota's name entered the discussion. The atmosphere changed almost immediately. Not dramatically, not obviously, but enough. It was visible in the subtle shift of posture, the slight adjustment in his expression, the way his answer arrived a second later than expected, as though his mind had traveled somewhere he had not intended to visit. Most viewers would have missed it. The internet did not. Within hours, clips were circulating across social media platforms. People slowed the footage down. They replayed individual reactions frame by frame. Entire communities devoted themselves to analyzing what had happened during those few seconds. That might sound ridiculous, yet what fascinated people was not merely the question itself. It was the answer. Because instead of offering the polished, predictable response everyone expected, Jamie spoke with unusual honesty. He didn't discuss publicity. He didn't discuss box office success. He didn't discuss the franchise. Instead, he discussed trust. The word appeared repeatedly throughout his answer. Trust, connection, vulnerability, safety. Words that sounded less like descriptions of a film production and more like descriptions of an emotional experience. That distinction mattered. Actors frequently praise one another. It is practically part of the job. Compliments are common. Admiration is expected. Professional respect is routine. What made this conversation different was the intensity behind the language. Jamie wasn't speaking like someone remembering scenes. He sounded like someone remembering feelings. And suddenly, a question that many people thought had been answered years ago returned with greater force than ever before. What exactly happened during those years? The more people examined the interview, the more intriguing it became. Certain comments stood out, not because they were shocking, because they felt revealing. Jamie described the experience of working alongside Dakota in terms that seemed unusually personal. He spoke about emotional immersion, about disappearing into scenes, about moments when the outside world appeared to fade away. Again, none of this constituted a confession. That is important. There was no declaration, no scandalous revelation, no admission of romance. Yet public fascination rarely depends upon certainty. In fact, uncertainty is often far more powerful. Certainty ends conversations. Mystery creates them. And mystery was exactly what this interview delivered. Within days, older footage resurfaced. Interviews people had forgotten. Press appearances long buried beneath years of newer content. Behind-the-scenes clips that had once attracted minimal attention. Suddenly, everything was being viewed through a completely different lens. People began noticing details they had previously ignored. A glance, a reaction, a smile, a moment of hesitation. Individually, these moments meant almost nothing. Together, they created something more compelling. A pattern. Patterns are dangerous because human beings are wired to search for them. Once people believe they have found one, they begin seeing evidence everywhere. And in the case of Jamie and Dakota, there was plenty to analyze. One particular clip became especially popular. It showed the pair preparing for a scene during filming. Nothing dramatic occurred. No extraordinary interaction took place. Yet viewers became obsessed with the way Jamie appeared to observe Dakota's preparation process. Not staring, not watching intensely, simply paying attention. That distinction might seem insignificant, but audiences interpreted it differently. To many viewers, it appeared less like professional observation and more like genuine fascination. Whether that interpretation was fair became almost irrelevant. The narrative had already taken hold. As interest intensified, another question emerged. Why now? Why would Jamie speak so openly after so many years? That question generated endless theories. Some believed maturity had changed his perspective. Others argued enough time had passed for honesty to feel safer. A few suggested that distance often reveals truths people cannot recognize in the moment. There is an interesting psychological reality behind that idea. When individuals experience emotionally intense periods of life, they rarely understand their significance immediately. Meaning often emerges years later, after distance creates clarity. Perhaps that was happening here. Or perhaps audiences were simply projecting their own interpretations onto a relatively ordinary interview. The truth remained elusive. Yet the ambiguity only made the story more compelling. What nobody could deny was the effect Dakota seemed to have had on him as a creative partner. Even critics of the speculation acknowledged that point. Again and again, Jamie returned to the same themes: presence, intensity, emotional intelligence, instinct. He spoke less about performance and more about experience. That distinction continued to fuel discussion. Because if someone repeatedly describes a professional collaboration in emotional terms, people naturally begin asking emotional questions. And once those questions begin, they rarely stop. Meanwhile, Dakota's own comments over the years attracted renewed attention. Viewers revisited countless interviews searching for hidden meanings. Many discovered something unexpected. Dakota had always spoken about Jamie with remarkable warmth. Not romantic warmth. Something arguably more interesting: trust, respect, affection, a sense of shared understanding. She frequently described the unusual circumstances under which they worked together. The pressure, the scrutiny, the vulnerability required by the material. Again and again, she emphasized how important trust became throughout that process. The more interviews people watched, the more they realized both actors consistently returned to the same themes. Not attraction, not romance, connection. That single word became central to the entire discussion. Because connection can mean many things. Professional connection, creative connection, emotional connection, human connection. The ambiguity made it irresistible. As public interest intensified, commentators began examining a larger issue. What happens when actors spend years portraying emotionally charged relationships? Hollywood has wrestled with that question for generations. The public often assumes performers can easily separate fiction from reality. Reality is more complicated. Actors routinely describe entering psychological spaces that blur ordinary boundaries. They spend months inhabiting characters, building emotional histories, creating believable intimacy with people they may barely know outside work. Most navigate that challenge successfully. Some struggle. Others discover friendships that last decades. A few emerge from Proch, fundamentally changed. Perhaps that was why Jamie's comments resonated so strongly. They felt honest, not sensational, not manufactured, honest. And honesty can be surprisingly disruptive in an industry built upon image management. The deeper people explored the story, the more they discovered how unusual the circumstances surrounding those films truly were. The scrutiny was relentless. Every interaction became news. Every appearance generated headlines. Every expression inspired analysis. Imagine attempting to build trust with another actor while millions of strangers continuously speculate about your relationship. Imagine trying to maintain professional boundaries while public narratives insist those boundaries do not exist. The pressure must have been extraordinary. Yet somehow, both actors survived it. Not only survived it, they thrived professionally despite it. That achievement alone deserves recognition, because many careers have been damaged by less intense scrutiny. Still, there remains something unresolved about the story. Something audiences sensed even if they could not articulate it. Perhaps it was the feeling that neither Jamie nor Dakota had ever fully explained what that experience meant to them. Not because they were hiding anything, because some experiences resist simple explanation. The most significant relationships in life are not always romantic. The most transformative connections are not always easy to categorize. Sometimes people enter our lives during extreme